You lace your boots in a changing room that smells of wet leather. The studs feel like nails under your feet. Outside, the crowd is already shaking the wooden stands, and the ball waiting on the pitch is not a toy of speed and spin, but a hard brown object with laces across its skin. This is football in the 1930s. And before you touch the ball, the game has already started hurting you. Your shirt is heavy. Your boots are stiff. Your shin pads feel like something borrowed from a workshop, not a sports bag. And if the sky opens above the pitch, every piece of equipment seems to drink the rain with you. Could you survive 90 minutes here? Start with the ball. In your world, the ball moves like a clean white machine, engineered to fly, curl, and respond to a gentle touch. In the 1930s, it is leather, stitched together, often with a visible lace protecting the bladder inside. When it is dry, it is already firm. When it is wet, it becomes something else. It grows heavier, meaner, and less predictable. So every header asks a question your modern forehead is not ready to answer. Do you really want to attack across when the ball drops out of a gray sky like a soaked medicine ball? The first World Cup in 1930 makes this physical world visible. FIFA's own archive places you in Uruguay, in Montevideo, with 13 teams at a tournament that still feels like an experiment. The European sides that crossed the Atlantic did not take a short flight, check into a training base, and recover with compression gear. They sailed for weeks. You arrive with your legs trapped between travel, nerves, and history. You are not entering a polished global festival. You are entering a sport still deciding what the World Cup even is. Brian Glanville, in The Story of the World Cup, treats those early tournaments like a strange mixture of romance, chaos, pride, and improvisation. That is the world under your studs. A world where national teams are becoming myths, but the players inside those myths are still men with blisters, bruises, and jobs waiting back home. Then the whistle goes. You expect rhythm. You get collision. The pitch is not the carpet, from television. The surface can be uneven, heavy, muddy, and cut open by boots designed more for protection than speed. A first touch is not just technique. It is negotiation. The ball jumps, the mud grabs, the defender arrives late, and the referee's idea of contact belongs to another century of pain. You look for the foul. The game tells you to get up. What happens if you cannot? This is where the 1930s become brutal. In the World Cup finals of 1930 and 1934, match rules listed no substitutions. That means if your ankle twists, your shoulder gives way, or your knee buckles, your team cannot simply replace you with a fresh runner from the bench. You stay, or your country plays with fewer men. That single fact changes everything about courage. It changes everything about fear. In the modern game, an injury is a tactical problem, a medical problem, and a squad management problem. In the 1930s, it is a moral test performed in public. Can you limp and still be useful? Can you stand somewhere and pretend your body has not betrayed you? Can you keep 11 shirts on the field even when one of them is barely a player anymore? Now look around you. The formations do not feel familiar either. Jonathan Wilson, in Inverting the Pyramid, describes how football tactics were reshaped after the offside law changed in 1925. Before that change, attackers usually needed 3 opponents between themselves and the goal line to stay onside. After it, they needed 2. That sounds small. It was enormous. It opened space. It stretched defenses. It made direct attacking more dangerous, and it forced managers to redesign the game while the players were still learning the new map. This is how the WM formation becomes important. It means the team shape looked like those 2 letters from above. In plain English, it pulled 1 defender deeper, created 3 defenders instead of the older 2, and placed attackers and midfielders in a more balanced pattern so the team could survive the new offside law. Herbert Chapman at Arsenal becomes one of the great names attached to this change. But you are not reading a tactics book. You are living inside the adjustment. You are a forward used to being marked one way, and suddenly a third back is waiting. You are a halfback asked to run, cover, pass, tackle, and think faster than the game has ever demanded. You are a defender facing attackers who can now stand closer to goal without being offside. Do you see the trap? Football in the 1930s is not just slower old football. It is a sport in the middle of a tactical earthquake. People today sometimes imagine old players as simple, rugged men chasing a heavy ball in straight lines. But that picture is too easy. The truth is harder. You are dealing with a game that is becoming modern without modern protection. The brain is being asked to move forward. The body is being treated like it still belongs to the past. That is why the 1930s would break you. Not because the players were magical. Because the conditions demanded a kind of stubbornness that modern football has slowly removed from the screen. Think about training. You do not have GPS data on your sprint load. You do not have a performance staff watching your hamstrings like a national treasure. You do not have a nutritionist measuring recovery meals, or a sports scientist telling the manager when your high-intensity output has dropped. You have practice. You have running. You have repetition. You have a manager's eye, a trainer's hands, and the knowledge that complaining too loudly may be taken as weakness. David Goldblatt, in The Ball is Round, shows football as a game shaped by class, politics, cities, empire, migration, and national pride. In the 1930s, you feel all of that pressing onto the pitch. You are not only playing for points. You are playing for a club, a factory town, a nation, a political symbol, or a crowd that has very little patience for softness. So when you walk into Italy in 1934, the pressure changes. The World Cup is no longer just a sporting experiment in Uruguay. It is a stage. Italy hosts. Italy wins. The final against Czechoslovakia goes to extra time in Rome, and Italy survives 2-1. 4 years later, under Vittorio Pozzo, Italy wins again in France, beating Hungary 4-2 in the 1938 final. Pozzo becomes the only coach to win 2 men's World Cups. That fact looks clean on a graphic. Inside the decade, it feels heavier, because 1930s football is not floating above history. It is trapped inside it. The stadium is not just a stadium. The flag is not just a flag. The anthem is not just music before kickoff. Could you play normally when every mistake feels useful to someone else's propaganda? Could you breathe normally when the match is being asked to prove something larger than football? Now reconstruct one ordinary moment. You are standing in the tunnel before a match in the mid-1930s. Your boots are brown and stiff. Your laces are tight. Your jersey hangs loose with sweat before the game has even begun. A goalkeeper beside you slaps oversized gloves together. A forward ahead of you rolls his shoulders and stares at the pitch. A referee checks the ball, and that ball has seams you can see from where you stand. No one is talking about expected goals. No one is telling you you're pressing triggers. Pressing means the moment your team decides to chase the opponent together instead of waiting. In your world, that idea can be organized with video clips, training mannequins, and weekly data. Here, it is instinct, instruction, and lungs. You hear the crowd. Then you step out. The first tackle arrives before your nerves settle. It is late, but not late enough for sympathy. Your boot catches in the turf, your shin sings, and the ball spins away toward the touchline. You look at the referee. Nothing. So you chase. That is the rhythm. Run. Hit. Adjust. Breathe. Run again. The old footage makes the game look slow because the cameras are slow, the frame rates are strange, and the image has aged. But inside the match, nothing feels slow. The panic is immediate. The touch is unreliable. The ball can sit up or skid away. The defender can be clumsy, brave, or both. And the crowd is close enough to feel personal. There is another twist. The 1930s would not only punish your body, it would expose your imagination. Modern fans often think tactical intelligence belongs to today because today has better graphics. But the questions of the 1930s are the same questions that still decide matches. Where is the free man? How do you defend space behind you? When does a forward drop short? How do you stop a team that attacks with 5 players? How do you keep the ball when the pitch wants to steal it? The tools are primitive. The problems are not. That is the counterintuitive truth. You might survive the running for a while. You might survive the boots. You might even survive the ball if you were brave enough not to duck. But could you survive having to solve modern football's oldest problems with none of modern football's comforts? Could you read the game while your socks are wet, your ankle is swelling, and your country expects you to keep moving? This is why the greatest names of that era should not be treated like museum pieces. Giuseppe Meazza was not playing a cute antique version of football. He was playing under pressure that would feel suffocating even now. Matthias Sindelar was not floating through a harmless old game. He was moving through a football culture where elegance had to survive contact, politics, and rough ground. And when you hear the name Leônidas, top scorer of the 1938 World Cup, you should not picture an old black and white curiosity. You should picture a forward trying to create beauty in a sport that still had mud under its fingernails. The past was not softer. It was less protected. That is the difference. Today, when a winger cuts inside on a perfect pitch, you see the descendant of those old tactical revolutions. When a center back drops deeper to cover space, you see the shadow of the third back. When a team adjusts its shape because one law changes, you are watching the same game that exploded after the 1925 offside change. The stadiums are brighter now. The ball is cleaner. The shirts are lighter. The bench is deeper. But the DNA remains. Football still asks you to solve pressure with your feet while thousands of people judge your answer in real time. It still turns small mistakes into permanent memory. It still makes national identity feel personal for 90 minutes. The 1930s simply asked those questions with fewer cushions around the player. So could you survive a day there? Maybe you could stand in the kit. Maybe you could jog through the warm-up. Maybe you could even convince yourself, for one bright second, that football is football in every age. Then the rain starts. The leather darkens. The ball grows heavier. The first cross drops toward your head. The defender's shoulder is already in your ribs, and there is no substitute waiting to save you from the next collision. Now the old game is no longer old. It is right in front of you. And you understand why those players look stiff in the footage. They are not stiff because the game was easy. They are stiff because everything hurt, and they kept playing anyway. You lace your boots in a changing room that smells of wet leather, and now you know the smell is not nostalgia. It is a warning.